In this video, you're going to learn about generational patterns, what they are, why they can be so tricky to see and to overcome, what that actually means, and then how to get out of that. So I just watched a video with Leila Hormozi where she talked about her observing her mother almost killing herself in front of her, and I realized that both my mother and my aunt actually attempted that too and followed through with it. And so instead of making this like a whole sub story, I always wanted to never be that type of person who's like, man, this is my story. My mom committed suicide and now I'm on the path of healing work. Never wanted to make this my story, but it is about time that I just start sharing about this as well. She did an awesome job raising us, but what really led to this dramatic event was even more dramatic for her than it was for us. I always thought for me, 15 years old, it didn't really affect. I really believed it. I really thought it didn't affect me that much because I was almost already grown up. I kind of already doing my own thing. I was like, yeah, I didn't even see her in the last 2 or 3 years so much because she was like basically all inside of herself, depressed. And I thought like, yeah, I'm over it already. I really did believe that. I really did not think that I was so affected by that because I wasn't feeling anything. But by cutting myself off from these feelings, obviously that was the issue and the main coping. But looking back at that, I really did not think that I was affected. I was just like, nah, it's fine. I just get on with my life, I guess. But what I realized later, really only when I was like 27, 28, 29, really, how much affected I was. And not so much by the event of losing her, but by the same patterns that made her do that. I should emphasize that and pronounce that, not pronounce, but emphasize it differently. Not by the event, but by the patterns that made her and that led to that event, right? That made her decide to do that. My aunt doing the same way, her sister, right? Like what are the patterns inside of people's psyches that make you do such a thing? And I had to look at that as well. And only like years later, and remember, I was already at this point doing healing work full time and like personal development full time for like 9 years at this point, or like when I was 27, I guess 7 years, right? When it like really started to dawn on me, it's like, oh man, there's more there, and it's like subtle, right? I just thought about the event that didn't affect me. I never really looked into the patterns behind that. Super interesting, and I want to utilize that and utilize the more than 10,000 hours that I've spent inside of myself, looking within and like working through that, writing that out, addressing this type of topic from all kinds of angles, because I never thought, I always thought the reason that I can't really get a woman to stay with me, that would have something to do with like my mother issue. I always looked at it that way. But it took like a long time, and remember, I was like into healing work, into therapy, like reading all of the classics in therapy and in self-development. It's like it took a long time, even for me, and I'm saying that as somebody who had the time to dedicate himself, and I believe I'm, everybody has talents, I'm just talented at this type of empathy work, understanding things psychologically, but not everybody is, and that's good, and you have other talents. What I'm saying with all of this is I had the time, I had the talent, and still, for me, it took me like years to uncover that. And so I realize now people who are just living their life and have work and family earlier, it's like, man, this is so hard to get to the core of that, to get to the root cause of that, because like, if you try to figure all of this out by yourself, it takes a lot of hours. And so that's what I try to do right now for people. That's what the value is that I'm intending to provide for people, that they don't have to go through like hours and hours and years of practice of like looking in the inner world to find clarity about what that is and what they need to address, because please understand that I did not know what to change. I had to like really dig and uncover and find out what the actual problem was. I always thought the problem in my life was that I just couldn't get a girlfriend, that I just couldn't get a woman to stay with me and be intimate with me. And I thought if I just had that, then I had so much more stability in my life I would be able to finally focus on my work because I actually knew exactly what I wanted to do. I just had to do it, but I just could not focus for a long time if I didn't have that. That was my belief at that time, right? And still, in times of deprivation, man, this is powerful, powerful conditioning. I don't want to give it more power by re-emphasizing that, but man, I am so understanding of myself, of not getting things done, and now I'm also understanding of a lot of other people who just seem to be in the cycle of suffering and struggle, where it's like, man, if you were in their skin, you would understand. They go through a lot of stuff, even if it doesn't make sense from the outside, if they are conditioned, if their body and the nervous system is wired in a certain way through like repetition of that. And they've set up their life circumstances in very unfortunate ways that does not give them what they need. So they're constantly seeking, constantly in deprivation, constantly in the state of dis-ease, of like just not being in balance, just being jacked up in their minds. Like things are getting jammed up and just spinning in unhealthy ways. Like if you knew, maybe you know exactly what that's like if you're listening. But somebody who is like risen above that, you look at this like, why are these people like, what the fuck? Yeah. It's hard to understand unless you've really been in there. It's like a whole different reality. And in the same way, if you get out of that, you actually heal and life integrates. You live your life on a higher frequency. You're like, man, what a wild nightmare that was. And so, what's the outcome here for this video? Generational patterns, exactly. And so what I realized, okay, so I always thought it was the event of her taking her own life that affected me, that led me to fear, getting close to women, and all of that. I thought that was the problem. But what the real problem was, were the patterns that led her to make life decisions in a way that led her to being in this position where her life absolutely did not match her expectation and she felt powerless to change that. And that led her over time to like spiral into this self-defeating thinking, because before you do that, man, there come years and thousands of hours of like self-deprecating thoughts and like thinking really horrible things about yourself and anybody else. You're probably going to blame your children that you can't follow your dreams. It's like, man, people think horrible, ugly stuff. But it's like, it's understandable that these thoughts come up. This is the type of work that I intend to do, and what I'm trying to convey, and just getting better at it every single day by speaking more about that, clearing my thoughts so that they come out with precision and clarity and purity. That these thoughts are absolutely normal. If you hate your children, these thoughts are normal, right? Like in the sense that there's nothing wrong with it. They are not helpful and they are not healthy. But it's like, if they are there, they are there. And the thing is, thoughts are oftentimes pointers. They are not to be taken literally. And this is also something that I had to understand. It's like, nobody really talks about that, apart from like in spiritual teachings, but like in school, like mainstream, even like in companies, when you're being trained as an employee, it's like, nobody really gives you these types of pointers. And that's what I'm doing in my seminars and in my work here for free as well, right? The goal with the seminars is that I just give everything, all of the knowledge away for free. There's no curriculum. There's nothing that I'm teaching there. It's just us doing the work. That's what we do there, right? Making new connections and making life-altering decisions, and then after the seminar, making sure that we stay accountable and follow through with that, right? Seminars and coaching, right? So the content beforehand, so that people, come prepared, right? I'm just making content to prepare people for my seminar work, and then we come there, that we do the work, the inner work, the work within that makes life work out, right? And then we have accountability afterwards as coaching. Because life does not change just in one moment. Yes, you can make a life-altering decision, but man, in order to follow through with that long-term, it's like most people just need consistent support. And that's how it should be. We should support each other consistently. Very unlikely, unless I'm like really powerful to make life-altering. Yeah. Not even Tony Robbins seemed to be able to do that all the time. It's like I look at people, their social media of those interventions, and they've done a lot, but yeah, consistent support. That's what people need. assistance support. Anyway, so generational patterns. And yeah, I realized that it were the patterns that made her live her life in a certain way, right? When you're brought up with a mother who kind of needs you for love, which applies certainly for her and her mother, my grandmother, right? And certainly my grandmother for her mother, and they probably can't be blamed. You know, probably my grandmother's mother, I don't even know. She's never talked to me about her mother. I don't even know. But maybe, you know, in war times, whatever, this was the only bond that they had. Like, who am I to judge? And especially in these times, come on, my grandmother's mother. Like, there was none of these teachings. Like, none of that. I mean, they started like living on a farm, surrounded by like animal noise and stuff. You know what I mean? They were like dealing with at nighttime mosquitoes and yeah, all kinds of and like lack of pretty much everything. And just a very simple thing. We just do the same thing. You milk the cows and you scoop up the poop and you deal with animals and you deal with animals. And so you remain very simple, and so yeah, and then you give that to your child, and yeah, without even knowing, it's just now in these generations where we really have the opportunity to clear out all of those generational patterns. And we can't really blame our parents to not have done that. I mean, they were the only generation where they really had the first chance at doing that, and not everybody is taking all of the opportunities that are coming to them in their lifetime. Like, they were busy too. Can you imagine how busy they were? And so they didn't. They could have, should have, of course, but they didn't. And that's okay, you know? And even if they've behaved horribly towards you, it's like, yeah, you know, if you would have stood in their skin, you would understood, no matter how horrible that was. Yeah, but that's obviously depends on the person. So generational patterns, yeah, I realized that I had the same patterns of being so extreme in my thinking, of so all and nothing. It's like either or, black and white, in the sense of either I live my life, the life of my dreams, and I do this completely, or I don't at all. And everything less than that, yeah, and also commitments. Man, to just commit to a place to live, it took me up until I was 27 years old. No, sorry, 28. I was 28 already, where for the first time committed to actually moving into a place and buying furniture. That wasn't even that long ago. Where I was, yeah, before just moving around, living in a backpack, or just living in my grandparents' place, just always kind of, okay, I'm gone in like 9 months, okay, I'm just here for a little while. It's just, why would you buy furniture, right? And actually I was right. I mean, knowing, but yeah, I just didn't want to commit. It also took me a while. It's like, you know, you gotta live in places for a few months. Like, it all takes time, especially if you don't want to live in the country where you're born. It's like, okay, then what do? You gotta like taste a few things, right, until you find where you want to live. And so that's fine. I've seen the world. I've seen a lot of the world, and it's been an absolutely amazing and beautiful privilege that I'm absolutely conscious and aware of, to make something with it and to articulate life and cultures in different parts of the world, so that the people of the world can relate to me, or at least the people of the Western world for now, right? I've seen a lot and I've done a lot. I'm absolutely grateful that I had the opportunity to do so, because most people don't, right? So this extremity of thinking, you know, being so extreme, so black and white in my thinking, either I do this or not, and unworthiness certainly was a part of it. You feel like when you make a mistake, you're completely unworthy. The self-criticism, being very self-critical, and this violent self-beating, this vicious self-beating of yourself, especially when you're not doing right or when you're not being perfect. This perfectionism. It's like, can you imagine you have 2 children and you being overweight, and you didn't do what was necessary to get the job that you wanted, and then being too afraid of upskilling and getting like another position, and you're just stuck in some washing plates. That's what she did basically in the restaurant kitchen as a dishwasher. I would have probably killed myself too, fuck. If I see it like that, I'm like, oh, that must have been a horrible life. I would have never wanted life. I mean, I would have changed it, I guess, but yeah, as a female, you know, when you're overweight, when you're on antidepressants, like, come on, like, what are you gonna do? You know, it's like, yeah, it's probably, yeah, and you don't have the knowledge of the teachings of how to change and how that works. It's like, she didn't know, she just didn't know. And I'm the first one who just got blessed with like this divine intervention of personal development, stepping in and stepping into my way. I also was completely unaware of that that's even possible to change your life. First time I heard Jim Rohn talk about that, you know, you're not a tree. You can change where you want to live. You know, you can change. You're not a tree. If you don't like where you live, move. I'm like, all right, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah. All that is to say that I'm practicing to make better content that is actually less about me, but more about the person that I'm talking to, and that is a true skill of thinking about the thoughts that people may have and their objections and their suggestions and everything that is going on, their unspoken thoughts, to be able to verbalize them, right? And so, yeah. I was realizing that it just didn't come out of me when I was in this place of suffering and total isolation and deprivation. That probably is also a pattern. She did not have any friends. How do you fucking explain that? How do you have not any friends as an adult? Like, I mean, she did, but yeah, how often did she, like, chit-chatting, gossiping, like, low-quality friends? And if you're a low-quality person, yeah, it sounds so horrible, but like, that's the thing, you know, you can only attract people on the same level of consciousness and keep them in yourself, right? So that's why I'm so passionate about this, about generational patterns. About helping people see and understand what is inside of them and what's going on. And why they behave the way that they do. Man, I'm dying to make more content on that, and it's like slowly starting to come out after 152 days of just daily posting content and writing about it. And I had this inside of me for so long, and it just would not come out because I just wasn't in balance. I wasn't probably also not fucking pure enough going around banging prostitutes. That was certainly very not helpful for this type of healing work to come out of me. I get it. You know, I was completely lost in my depression as well after COVID. I just did not know how to deal with it. The first time where what I was struggling with was not just myself, but actually things on the outside in the world. I was like, oh fuck, that's new. I never had that. That completely dismantled me for like a couple of years. Completely derailed me. I was just not strong enough to buffer that. I wasn't even strong enough to get myself together back then. Didn't realize what it was. And I was just searching so earnestly and so eagerly for the fucking solution to that. And I didn't realize that it was so simple. That actually just learning how to talk about my problems, being aware of my own patterns in my mind, having friends, that was the biggest thing. Starting with friends. Long-term thinking, starting with friends. Then finding a girlfriend. Then remaining in balance, keeping everything the same. And just producing content. Building the brand first and then the product. And all of these things I didn't understand, I kind of did understand them. And had I had a girlfriend and friends, I certainly had the intelligence and the foresight to see that for sure. I knew exactly what to do. I just couldn't, I was stuck. Very interesting. So yeah, how do we overcome that and what do we do? That shall be part of the next video.